blasting, billowing, bursting forth with the power of 10 billion butterfly sneezes.
I'm Tom Bain, and this is Wine, Money, and Song. If you're interested in wines and wanting to find out the best values, please subscribe. Back in 1998, when I was working for Seagram Chateau and Estate in New York, I gave a tasting at my house. And I give tastings every once in a while, and a lot of people in the wine business put tastings on. But I decided I wanted to do this really grand tasting. And I wanted to invite my major accounts, restaurateurs, chefs, and people who mean a lot to me as far as my business goes. And I did this outside of my company. My company did not pay for the tasting. Everything came out of my cellar. And the reason why I did that is I wanted people to see me in my environment of really surrounding myself with all the wines that I had and which I served to them. I served 26 wines at this tasting, and it was a dinner too. We cooked a few dinner. My wife got a filet de boeuf roast and made a Bordelais sauce, and we had scalloped potatoes and French green beans. We had hors d'oeuvres, and my wife's really not a cook. She's a technology executive, and if she cooks 4 or 5 times a year, she does Thanksgiving, Christmas, and maybe Easter. But she wanted to help me do this, and she did a great job, considering we had all these famous chefs there and some of my big accounts. And I said I did that to show my credibility and how serious I am about wine.
Fuck, you can't be serious, man. You cannot be serious!
And you're going to see at the end of these episodes, you're going to see the resale value today of those wines, and your head is going to blow up. But trust me, I paid maybe 20% of the current value, if that, back then of the wine. So I could be kind of a big shot back then. And today's prices are really inflated and high. And when wines age, they go up in value, hopefully. And the people who came, I invited 12 people. And I think nine attended. And the 3 who didn't attend, they found out from the people who went that they made a major mistake by missing it. So I called it the tasting Bordeaux in the Fall, 1998. And hopefully you will enjoy this tasting. So I just want to preface the explanation of this tasting is I did this out of my own pocket. My company did not reimburse me for the wines, for the food. But after I had this tasting, about a week later, my sales manager called me in and he said, I understand you did quite a tasting at your house. And he asked me to explain it, and I explained it to him. I said, I had some chefs over, some of my larger restaurant accounts, and my best retail accounts, and I wined and dined them. We made a big meal, me and my wife, and I served some really great wines. So he said to me, I heard about it. One of my accounts said, why wasn't I invited to it? And the answer he should have gave, well, you don't have Tom Bain as your representative. And as I said, part of the reason why I did this is to give myself more credibility in the market and to be known as a person who is really immersed himself in wine, especially Bordeaux, and is a person to go to when they really want to talk about especially Bordeaux. And my boss said to me, he says, the next time you do it, we'll pay for the meat. Something like that. We'll pay for part of the food. So as I said, we started, there's 26 wines. We'll do the first 13 this episode, and the next episode we'll do the other 13. And we'll do a summary at the end of the second one. So we started with a Champagne Blason de France Rosé and a Magnum from Perrier-Jouet, and very few people know about Blason de France. It's sort of an in-between level between the regular Grand Brut and the Belle Epoque Fleur de Champagne. That's the top end, and the Blason's in between. But I like the Rosé a lot because it had that really cool Pinot Noir fruit to it, and really, really a nice, luxurious Rosé. We started with that. We had hors d'oeuvres, we had some baby quiches, we had some shrimp, other little things to go with this. And the second wine I served after the Blason de France Rosé was Clos Saint-Émilion Riesling 1983 from Trimbach. And the single vineyard wine, Clos Saint-Émilion is considered to be one of the great wines in the world, and one of the top Rieslings, obviously. And I must say the 1983 Clos Saint-Émilion is one of the greatest white wines I've ever had in my life. I can maybe put Ravignon 1985 Les Clos with that, and Chave Hermitage Blanc 1985 with that. Three of the greatest white wines I've ever had. And Yquem 2001's up there too. But the Riesling was just incredible. And I think I had a few ribs there too for that, and perfect with the ribs. And then we had 2 bottles of Louis Latour Corton Charlemagne, 89 and 90. And at the time I was selling Louis Latour wines in New York. We were representing them. And Corton Charlemagne, or we call it Corton Charlie, was I felt was at the top of the list for Latour. And they make a very big style, and broad-boned and in-your-face style. And 89 and 90 were hot vintages. In the 89, I've had it quite often, and it was always almost like it came from California. It was a little short on acidity, and the 90 was a little better, but still, both of these wines were vintages that were very hot, and they lacked a little acidity, but really big flavored. Then we started the Bordeaux. We graduated from our back patio to the living room, and we started out with Saint-Émilions, and the first was Chateau Figeac, 1982. And Figeac, as you know, is a third Cabernet Franc, a third Cabernet Sauvignon, and a third Merlot around there. And it's very different than most other Saint-Émilions. And it was one of the wines that I felt was more advanced as far as its evolution. But it was full-flavored and very different because of the combination of grapes in it. Then we went to Chateau Canon, 1982, which was more of a firmer wine, and which was a wine that needed more age. And at that time, the 82 was 7 or 8 years old. So excellent Canon. And Canon now is one of the top Saint-Émilions. So very different in style in the Figeac. Then we went on in Saint-Émilion to 2 Cheval Blancs. We did 1986 and 1982. The 86 vintage was a very tannic vintage, especially in the left bank, but Cheval Blanc is a right bank wine, and it was bigger, more tannic, and some of the wines on the right bank in 86 are very angular and blocky, and this is a full-blown Cheval Blanc. The 82 Cheval Blanc, Parker coined as could be the wine of the vintage, and maybe rivaling 47 Cheval Blanc. It's an outstanding Cheval Blanc, but I think it's just an excellent Cheval Blanc. And as I've tasted it, as it's been aging, it's still excellent. But as far as greatness, I don't think it's a great Cheval Blanc, to be honest, even though all of the hullabaloo that it had. Then we went on to Pomerol, and we started with the 82 Les Conseillantes. People really didn't know Les Conseillantes back then much, but the 89 and 90 Les Conseillantes are two great wines, and probably rivals this wine. Excellent, elegant wine, and a lot of fruit in the 82. Then we went on to Chateau Petrus, 1985, and 85, for the people who want unrecognized great vintages, underpublicized, 1985 is the one that comes to my mind. The first growths in 85, some of them weren't outstanding. Lafite was excellent, very elegant and light, and 85 is a very elegant wines, but Haut-Briond's the only one who hit the ball out of the ballpark in 85. 82 Léoville Lascasse. If you want to have a great Léoville Lascasse, 82 is incredible. The 85 Petrus, very elegant, very silky, very refined, very claret style, and perfectly balanced, and a lot of nuance to it. And then we had the L'Avangile 85, and hand in hand with the Petrus, very elegant wine, very finite wine, beautifully elegant. And then we went on to Grave, and we had the 1978 Le Mission Haut-Briond, and the 78 vintage was called the Miracle Vintage in Bordeaux because they were writing it off until September. They didn't have the proper ripeness, but in 78, all of a sudden the sun came out and the grapes got ripe enough. And the Le Mission is one of the best wines of 78. Very, very minerally, very, very earthy, and very balanced, round in the mouth, and very soil-driven wine. The last wine from Grave is the Domaine de Chevalier, the 1982. And the 1982 Domaine de Chevalier really didn't show the characteristics of a lot of the other 82s, very overt fruitiness, up front, very easy to drink. The 82 Domaine de Chevalier is more soil and leaner than some of the other wines, and more typical claret style than a lot of the 82s were. It's a very interesting wine and very controversial in 1982. But if you have it on its own, it is really a textbook Grave. And Domaine de Chevalier has gone on to be one of my favorite Grave producers now. And year in and year out, they make wonderful wines. So this is the first part of this tasting we had. And I had to slow down a lot of my guests. And I told them, don't drink your full glasses. We have 26 wines, and I don't want you drinking more than an ounce of anything. And this started at 1 o'clock, and it ended a lot for these people. Most of them started going home at 11 o'clock at night. And one or two of them had to take a nap in between. And we did serve dinner at the second part of the tasting, and I will go through that on the next episode. But the key thing that I tried to do with this tasting is give an overall view to my clients about each appellation, and I gave them outstanding vintages to compare and to taste. And each appellation, you could just compare them all against each other. And at the end of the tasting, they all thanked me immensely. And I felt like I had done a good thing for my clients and a good thing for myself as far as a professional, and to ingratiate my customers. And also I did it to shine a bright light on my company, C&E Chateau and Estate. And tune in for part 2, and you'll see even greater wines than we had the first part.